All right, Thursday night Krug show. Sterling Bennett is in the house. Surprise Thursday nighter goes to the New York Giants. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about the Niners and the Bucs. We got a lot to get to. Let's go. Off and rolling Thursday night on the Krug show. Hope everybody's having a great day. It was not a great day for the fans of Philadelphia. Dodgers said goodnight, Phillies. And then the New York Giants said, you guys aren't going bad enough. Let's send you on your way. And the New York Giants beat the Eagles, and the Eagles have lost 2 in a row. Welcome to the Krug Show. We're brought to you by Pig and a Pickle, the best barbecue in all of Northern California. Check them out. They're in Emeryville. They're in Corte Madera. They're open 7 days a week from 11 a.m. till 8 p.m. or until they run out, and they do run out. So get there early, get some brisket chili. Tell them the Krug sent you. Also, we're brought to you by Sleeper. 49er football season is presented by Sleeper, the fastest growing fantasy platform in the world. It's a one-stop shop. You get blazing fast news, real-time stats, group chat, season-long leagues, and, of course, Sleeper picks for daily fantasy. So use that promo code Larry. Sleeper will match your first deposit up to $100. Links in the description. Terms and conditions apply. We'll make a lineup as well before we get out of here tonight. But we titled the stream 49ers Warning. Baker and Emeka could be big problems for Robert Saleh's defense. The one thing the 49ers have going this weekend is they're playing a Bucs team that rolls in really hot. Baker Mayfield is probably the hottest quarterback in the league. He completed 88% last week in Seattle, against Seattle. 29 of 33 for 379 and 2 touchdowns. He also knows when to run. He mixed in 5 runs for 15 yards, and they put up 38 points on the Seahawks defense, albeit without DeMarcus Lawrence, Devin Witherspoon, and Julian Love. But nevertheless, the Buccaneers went to Seattle and got a very impressive win. And if that's not enough, their rookie wide receiver from Ohio State is not just the best rookie wide receiver. He's the best rookie offensive player. I think he's going to be the offensive rookie of the year for sure. I'd be shocked if he's not. He also might be the best rookie receiver since Randy Moss, and that was 1998, and it's 2025. So it's been a while. Emeka Egbuka has just been awesome. 7 catches for 163 yards and a touchdown. Sterling, the Niners are going to have to slow down Mayfield. They're going to have to rush him. They have not put on a big rush since Bosa left. And they're going to have to somehow slow Egbuka, and I don't see any weaknesses. He's really a great young receiver.
Yeah, this is probably San Francisco's biggest test since Matthew Stafford and Puka Nacua 1 week ago, but they're definitely going through a gauntlet right now of great quarterback play and good wide receiver play now with Mayfield and Egbuka out there in Tampa Bay. They're just playing. It's great chemistry. It's great, really just pass and catch, and you get open. You give me a smidge, a hair of daylight, and I'll find it if you're Baker Mayfield and Egbuka. And you go to the stats, and they're so impressive this year with what Baker has done. And I came into the year believing Baker was the top 10 quarterback in football, and now I think it looks pretty obvious he may be top 6, top 7. He looks really good so far this year. He's dropping back 35 times per game and is throwing for, I believe, the 6th highest yards per game. He's playing like an MVP. And I think, you see some guys play good football and you walk in knowing you're playing a good quarterback, but it's different when you're playing good quarterbacks that have just great confidence, that you just know no matter what you do to them, they're unshakable. Baker's playing that way so far this year, and his offensive line hasn't done him any favors. He's not going to have Mike Evans, it seems like, this Sunday. He didn't have Chris Godwin early in the season. And they had no running game without Bucky Irving. So a lot's on Baker's plate, but he continues to find a way to make plays and keep the Bucs either in games or getting him a win against Seattle, obviously, last weekend was great too. But he has the most big-time throws in football this year. The highest percentage of his passing attempts are also big-time throws, being 17% of his passes. And he's completing just under 42% of those big time throw attempts. So he is a quarterback that doesn't just say, I'll carry you. He's a quarterback that says, all you have to do is give me one play and I'll hurt you on defense. So big test for San Francisco's young-ish secondary on Sunday.
I mean, he's got a lot of swagger. He's a smaller quarterback. You can bat down some of his passes. But he knows when to run. He's really aggressive. He'll throw you a pick. You can pick him off. I mean, he hasn't this year for the most part, but his reputation is that he'll throw you an interception, or you'll get your chances to put your hands on footballs because
he's fumbled 3 times this year, I believe.
And not only that, he'll throw the 50-50 ball, and he'll throw it into some tight spaces, and he's got a lot of confidence in his arm. He's got a lot of confidence in his receivers. He's got maybe the best group of receivers when everybody's healthy. Now, they're not right now. Godwin right now is going to be back for this game, but he's not back to like full go. Egbuka is an incredible player, and he's a full go. But they still their Mike Evans, their future Hall of Famer, is not going to play in this game. So, but and you sit there and go, well, that should really hurt them, and it will. But I mean, Tez Johnson's played well for them. The Oregon rookie, they took in the 7th round. He's looked really, really good. Sterling Shepard, still has great hands, and if he's open, you throw him the ball, he's gonna catch it. So he can make big catches. Ryan Miller can make catches. So they have guys who can, and then of course they throw it to the tight end. Cade Otton, Payne Durham. They use Payne Durham more as a run blocker. Otton's more of the receiver, but Otton's got a lot of talent. So they, even though they don't have Mike Evans, even though they don't have Bucky Irving, and they'll throw it to Rachaad White. You might see them throw it to White out of the backfield. I think this is going to be a huge challenge because the one thing with Mayfield, every single week this year, he's thrown for more yards than the week before. He just keeps getting better and better and hotter and hotter. And Egbuka is a veteran-like rookie receiver with hesitation moves and all kinds of fakes and subtle pace changes. I mean, he's really advanced. So it's going to be a huge challenge for the Niners defense. Can they put some heat on Mayfield? Can they move him off the spot? And can they cover these receivers and stay anywhere close to Tez Johnson in key moments?
Who do you think San Francisco attempts to utilize to guard or match up with Egbuka? Because my assumption was probably Renardo Green, one of your bigger cornerbacks. You can get into some press coverage situations with him. Although Egbuka's not been great against man coverage, San Francisco never runs man coverage, and you may want to avoid Marquis Siegel and a returning Malik Mustafa getting beat over the top against Egbuka in this game. So most fans may say your best cornerback, but I may say Green against Egbuka might be San Francisco's best chance. What do you think?
Well, I mean, I don't know if you're going to travel with him. He's, I think my guess is that they're not going to travel with him. That, when he's in the slot, he'll get Stout. When he's on the outside, he'll get Green or Lenore. I think I'd like to have Lenore on him because I really think he's that dominating. But it's funny too. It's like in a lot of these matchups, I find myself when I get into the matchup feeling pretty good about the Niners matching up with a lot of these better receivers because I like the athleticism of the Niners' top 3 corners between Lenore, Renardo Green, and especially Upton Stout. They don't lack for quickness and speed and a mirroring ability and aggressiveness. I mean, these guys know how to get in your hip pocket and stay there. They're really, I mean, they don't, it's not like they have a slow-footed corner or kind of a big-bodied corner who can't quite mirror. Their top 3 guys, like even against Puka, I mean, Puka made some plays, but I thought overall, I think they did a nice job at defending Nakua. Nakua came in super hot. So I do think, like, even though Egbuka is really rolling and he's got hesitation moves and head and shoulder fakes and all kinds of stuff, he's very fluid. He's very veteran-like. I still think if you said, what kind of player would you want on him? I want a guy who's faster than him, who has better body control than him, and is also a smart player. And I think the Niners have 3 guys like that. So I'm not that I'm not concerned about Egbuka. I am. I think he's a real problem. Last week he made it like personal. It was like his return home. Seattle passed me over, and I'm never going to forget it. And I'm going to burn them. And he just had he's always good, but he was extra good. And then maybe the rivalry with JSN from Ohio State, maybe that was kind of brought out as well. But he was incredible last week. They have to do something to slow down Egbuka, but I like the matchup.
Going through some stats really fast here. He's averaging 5 receptions, 89 yards, and 1 touchdown through 5 games this year. It's incredible stuff. He has 9 receptions over 20 yards this season. He is, so far through 5 games, the most efficient deep ball catcher in the entire league. Second most targets with 13, most touchdowns at 4, most 20-plus yard first downs with 8. He is 40% in the slot, or nearly 40% in the slot, and 60% on the outside. But when I see the success that Baker and Egbuka have had, I do get somewhat scared for Marquis Siegel, who is not terrible in coverage, but there have been kind of signs of, you can get beat over the top, and it's happened against the Rams a couple times in previous games. But also, I know we are excited for Malik Mustafa's return. I think we all are. He's a great safety and was last year for San Francisco. But if the Bucs get the ball first, they're taking a shot early, and they should. Test a returning safety and a young safety early. Why not? Like, you can get a free score if you hit it, so why not try it? Like, that is my fear against Baker and Egbuka this Sunday.
Sometimes something catches my eye in the chat and I get distracted. Here's one of them that caught my eye. Mr. Irrelevant MC Larry, are you not going to bring up John Lynch calling the Raiders about Mad Max? Did he? I didn't see that. John Lynch was on KNBR today, and he did talk about how he's been proactive and that he's been talking to teams around the league about potential trades. And, it just basically said that had to make sense. But that, first of all, the Raiders would rather their franchise fold than give good players and faces of the franchise to the 49ers.
Yeah.
The Niners made a really attractive offer once upon a time for Khalil Mack. Supposedly it was the best offer. And Mark Davis was like, nope, we're not trading him there. Mark Davis still has this rivalry because he feels like he was kind of kicked out of the Bay Area by the Niners, probably beating them, and I think it's a real rivalry. I think it's crazy there are certain teams that are just not going to deal with the 49ers. I don't think the teams in their division probably will deal with them, and I don't think the Raiders would. So I don't think the Raiders are trading Max Crosby. They just signed Max Crosby. They're not trading him. I know it's a real shame Max Crosby is going to go. Yeah, guess what? I can go find 10 other guys in the last 30 years, and their career was a shame too, but they still were Raiders,
What's the last trade the Niners and Raiders have actually pulled off together? I can't think of one in my lifetime. There's been certain players that have gone back and forth in free agency, Nnamdi Asomugha, Malcolm Smith, and all those guys, but I can't think of a recent trade of both franchise.
Yeah, maybe a draft pick. A draft pick trade, probably. I would say it's probably likely they made a draft pick trade somewhere.
But not like a superstar caliber player that maybe the regime wants to get rid of. Like, it's not going to happen.
No, I don't think so. And I don't think, he's not calling the Raiders about Mad Max. And I also kind of think, and maybe I'm wrong about this, but, we were going to talk about this later, but we can move this topic up a little bit. John Lynch told KNBR this morning that he's making calls, and there's a lot of people that are expecting him to make a trade. Are you expecting them to make a trade? And give me a name. Who should, if John Lynch were on here and he's like, hey, Sterling, you talk Niners, who should I trade for?
I think that's dependent on what San Francisco's run is in the next couple of weeks or so. I think the Niners, albeit are 4-1, I think they still are in territory where they have to earn to make that trade. We also heard, I think it was Kyle or John say today or yesterday that they don't want to kind of mortgage the future for a guy. It has to make sense on a lot of fronts for them. If that's the case, I think you want to look towards a guy that probably isn't going to cost you too much, or at least will be there for past 2025, which the bigger name, I guess, would probably be Kayvon Thibodeau, but he's not been playing as great as he was to begin the year as of late. Maybe you call the Jets and go after Jermaine
Also,
Johnson.
aren't the Giants coaching and GMing for their lives? Are they really going to trade away Thibodeau? They have to lose
their
too. Dream is that in their dream, Dart and Scattaboo lead them to the playoffs, and they get a wild card spot and save their jobs and contract extensions, and they're the toast of Manhattan.
Right, which is maybe why you call the Jets, who are 0-5 this year and may want to sell off some previous regime's draft picks. You go out there and get Jermaine Johnson. Maybe you can call about Will McDonald. I think Johnson more likely in that case, but Carl Granderson's out there for the Saints. I'm not in the business of trading for a 30-year-old edge rusher. I want a guy in his mid-20s who you know is going to be there this year, next year, or is at least cheaper to acquire. I know some fans want Arden or some fans want Bradley Chubb. I don't hate Bradley Chubb, but I like, what is his role? Is he a third down edge rusher for you? Is he a 3-down player for you? Probably not. I don't know what San Francisco actually wants. So I think you call the Jets. It's an easy trip right there. Jermaine Johnson, Will McDonald, those guys make a lot of sense. And if you're going bargain hunting, go out and get a Arden Key for like a 5th or 6th round draft pick and call it a day.
Yeah, I like the Will McDonald idea. I like the idea of adding the third down specialist because they have first and second down covered. They can get by on first and second down. It's the edge rusher who's going to burn the edge and get the quarterback and put him on his can. You know what I mean? It's like, so go. I don't need a Nick Bosa 275-pound. Behemoth who can play first and second down against the run, and third down he's still in there and he can rush the passer. I mean, yeah, if you could get Trey Hendrickson, awesome. That'd be great. But listen to Kyle Shanahan here. I'm going to play this Shanahan cut, and we'll see if we can kind of decipher what he's saying and what you think of this. This was from the presser earlier this week, and I forget who. This might have been a Kawakami question. It's on Coach Yak's Twitter. We'll share the screen, and you can hear Shanahan in his own words asked about the trade deadline. A lot of people jumped this and said Shanahan doesn't believe in his team. I don't think that's the case, but people are so aggressive. But here we go. Here's Shanahan at the presser talking about the trade deadline.
Back to the trades. I think John said on the radio that you're gonna have to see how the season's going to assess what the situation is. 4-1 as the guy coaching this, does that increase your interest in maybe making a trade or two?
Not really. What increases my interest is who's the guy that can absolutely help us get better this year without hurting us next year, and you balance both of those out. But there's got to be a guy available, and sometimes it's two different things. Sometimes there's one guy who can only help this year. Sometimes there isn't a guy available who's like that. So we'll see what comes up. Sometimes things come up, but I don't see any different right now than how I felt going into the year.
Like in the Emmanuel Sanders trade was like, really, you said it, we're maybe one piece away. Do you feel at all similar? I know it's a little ways away to that time.
No, I don't feel at all like that. I think at that time we had a Super Bowl defense that was as good as anyone in the league, and probably had been for like 10 years, and it was pretty obvious. And I thought, at the time, some of the receivers we were dependent on weren't there, and we were playing some young rookies, and we thought we needed to add another guy. But yeah, I don't totally see it the same situation as right now.
Very juicy answer, I think. I think that was a very juicy answer. Very interesting exchange there. And it seemed like Tim was trying to lead him towards, yeah, it's similar to 19. And Kyle's like, no, I don't see it the same way. And like the first one's obvious. Nick Bosa's out for the year.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that right there changes. It's not like 19, because in 19 you had Bosa and Ford and Armstead and Buckner. That was your D-line. You had a ferocious D-line. Your ferocious D-line min is out for the year right now. So it's like, and that team was more of a veteran team that had experience and was, trying to break through. This team's got some great players on it, but they're all in the twilight of their greatest players. And then they've got some really great, I think, young players, but they're all in their first year, and they're probably going to be better in a year or two. So they're kind of two timelines. Where have I heard that?
That didn't go well the first time.
It didn't go well. If we're going to be talking about Jonathan Kuminga at any point tonight, it's not going well. But there you have it. Let's unpack this. There's a lot to unpack. If you were hearing that? What does that tell you about what what can we just glean from that tells us about what Kyle Shanahan thinks about his team?
Well, I think it's pretty clear that Shanahan doesn't see them investing a first or a second round draft pick to go get a guy. And I don't think they don't believe in the roster. I think it's simply just they know it's a retooling season, and they hope they can get the best bang for their buck, but they're not going to risk mortgaging their future to maximize this roster. They believe in the guys on the roster, but it's almost like, take us as far as you can take us. We're not going to buy in 100%. We don't care. The Super Bowl's Levi Stadium in February. We don't care about that. We have to maximize, yes, this year, but also realize that Trent's 36 going on 37. First round pick's probably going to be a tackle in a year. Bosa's aging towards 30 off 2 ACLs. Maybe you want to find somebody else during the draft next year. So that to me certainly felt as if Kyle was saying, if a trade makes sense around round 3 and 4, like Emmanuel Sanders was, we'll think about it. But there's no guarantee they're completely buying in. They'll ask, but I don't think they are all in per se on this team right now.
It's a very interesting, time, because on one hand, Trent Williams ain't getting any younger, right? George Kittle ain't going to get any younger. Bosa's hurt now. CMC ain't getting any younger. Is it realistic to think beyond 25 for any of these guys as like they're going to be better? Aren't all your guys, your key, isn't basically your top 10 players all going to be kind of worse next year than this year? So the whole deferred gratification when you have, 7 key players in the twilight. I don't know about that, but you also have 7 key draft picks who are just trying to kind of cut their teeth. And I think the CJ Wests, the Nick Martins, the Alfred Collins, the Upton Stouts, the Marquis Seagulls, they're clearly going to be better players next year than they are this year. And that is probably going to elevate the whole roster. So I understand that. I don't know. There's a lot going on there. I do think, like, if you said based on what they're saying, because, these guys are pretty straightforward. They kind of tell you the truth if you listen to them. Yeah. I don't think they do that much lying. I think they're kind of, especially Shanahan, he's pretty straightforward. I think what they're saying there is that, I think you hit on it. They're not trading that first round pick. Now, I'm not the number 2. That one maybe is a little bit more debatable. We could debate that, but they are not trading that first round pick because it's earmarked on an offensive tackle. And it has to be an offensive tackle. I think everybody who covers the team, everybody who roots for the team, everybody that's knowledgeable at the team knows that's got to be an offensive tackle. It absolutely has to. There's a reason that you can't trade for an offensive tackle right now, because this is not where you get them. You get them in the first round of the draft, and they're going to and they've delayed it, deferred it, D-line over O-line, D-line over O-line, and now here it is. They have to invest in the O-line. And probably 2 of the top 3 or 4 picks probably have to be tackles, not just offensive linemen, but literally offensive tackles. So that's I think where they're at. So I think that's kind of where he's at. I did find it interesting that he's looking at it in a 2-year window, though. Like, we got to get somebody who can definitely help us this year. So it's like, in other words, we're not just going to make a trade just to get some average schmo in here.
Right.
It's got to be a difference maker in the present that makes us better. Okay, that's on one hand. And then it can't cost us in the future. And I think cost us, he's saying the first, and you might be right. He might be saying the first and the second. But they don't want to trade their heavy-duty draft capital to try to go for it this year because they think they have a good team, but I don't think they think they've got an all-time team. And so there's no reason to pour all their assets into 2025. So I think that's what they're saying. But if you said to me, Krug, hey, you follow this team, what do you think they're going to ultimately wind up doing? It's interesting. I think this year, they first of all, I do think they'll make a deal.
Yeah.
I think Lynch has popularized the midseason deal. He really has. I mean, it's a more popular thing now. More teams are doing it because he's done it and he's had success with it. But I think, Brad Graham threw out Miles Murphy the other day. And Matt Mayoko, in an article on Niner Noise website, threw out Xavier Legette, and
interesting,
as a receiver that he thinks. I could see the 49ers adding somebody that is like a young player that they like, that they can get for nothing, and can be part of their, group going forward. Like, I Xavier Legette, at first I'd go, nah, but you know what? I think they're going to probably let JJ walk at the end of the year, and they're probably going to need a big physical receiver, and he's a big, talented receiver. Now, is it surprising to me that he's not playing well? No, because I thought he was really raw coming out of South Carolina. I think anybody who drafted him had to invest some time, and it's clear Carolina is going to invest a little time, but now they're kind of like, maybe we're not. Maybe he's not that great. So I think they're losing confidence in him. I think he's totally gettable for like a day 3 pick. And I think he's a big, fast, strong receiver that's a good prospect. So I think, Miles Murphy is not Trey Hendrickson. But guess what? He's 23. He's super athletic. He's got a great NFL body. You could coach him up. I think this is more along the lines of the Charles Omenihu, Jordan Willis, like a smaller piece, but maybe a piece that has some upside, maybe a failed. I could even see Garendo. So we were talking, a couple of the writers today said, what do you think they're ultimately going to do with Garendo? I think Garendo is totally, first of all, I would use him as a receiver right now. I'd start using him as a receiver. That's what he's best at. He's a receiver. But I said, maybe you could trade a Garendo for an Xavier Legette. You know what I mean? Our failed, talented, athletic running back for your failed, talented, athletic receiver. And I say failed just because neither has necessarily broken through quite yet. Maybe failed is too harsh of a term. But that's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking like Will McDonald would be a great get. He's not retiring. You might have to pay a decent pick, but he would be a decent get because he's a player that is going to be here in the present and he's going to be here next year. So I think that's kind of like, I love the idea of Hendrickson. But man, then it's not really about like the trade. I think they could make, and the fit. I think it would be a good fit. It's the extension. Could they do the extension and still have their cap all work with Bosa? And if you can't do that extension, then all that trade, even if you got him for a draft pick compensation that you liked, what's it worth if he's just a rental? Especially if he's a rental in a year where Bosa's already out for the year. So. But I think Shanahan's saying, hey, we're 4-1, but doesn't mean that we don't see our flaws and doesn't mean we don't see the bigger picture. And I just think that they're going to proceed with caution. I do think they'll make a trade, but I think it's going to be for a young, player with upside that has not done it wherever he's at right now.
Well, that's why I think hitting the Jets they make a lot of sense. For San Francisco, obviously there's ties with Saleh, and who knows if Woody Johnson wants to make a deal with this former head coach he fired after a win, I think, last year. Just kind of a crazy relationship there with those guys. So maybe the Jets say no, like the Raiders would too with Max Crosby. But I think looking for that kind of quote unquote, like you said, failed first round draft pick, failed second round pick makes a lot of sense if San Francisco wants to kind of find their best bang for their buck. I'm a little concerned with Yetur Gross-Matos' injury. So I do think finding edge depth does make some sense, and finding guys that, even if they aren't, let's say, a game-changing type player, if you can get guys for cheap, like Amenahue was, like even last year wasn't a great deal. Khalil Davis was I'm pretty sure it was an RFA, but he retired during the offseason. But I think finding guys that maybe you can re-sign for the cheap also makes some sense to insulate yourself going into next year. You mentioned the Panthers and Leggett. I think DJ Wanham can make some sense. He has 3 void years in his contract. You can erase those by a small extension pretty easily there. At one point this year, he had a 25% pass rush win rate, was pretty good. Things have changed for them, but I do think if the Panthers continue to kind of fall down or lose some more games, I think finding valuable edge depth under contract for 2 years makes some sense. I think Gross Matos is probably a free agent after the end of the year. You'll see what Sam O becomes, and if they retain Bryce Huff, they probably will. But we'll see what the guaranteed contract do in March. But I think you may see them make a smaller move, like you're saying, not kind of bet the farm on guys, but insulate themselves for 1 or 2 years, hoping to find maybe the best guy to get into the building and have them progress under Saleh and company on the defense.
There's one other angle that I was thinking of, and it's not necessarily a great thought because it's kind of reveals kind of the cutthroat nature of the whole business. But when I hear the idea of going after Jeffrey Simmons, I think, wow, Jeffrey Simmons is a great player, right?
Yeah, he is.
But it also kind of makes me think, is that the kind of player that you get because he's going to be your future, guy who demands a double team, and that maybe that's the beginning to saying goodbye to Nick Bosa. And I don't know. I don't know that they're going to say goodbye to Nick Bosa. They love Nick Bosa. But man, I mean, he's expensive. His body's failing him. It's nothing lasts forever in the NFL. I can't see them having a line that has Simmons and Bosa, but though that is intriguing. But if you had Simmons and you could play Mikel mostly outside, maybe you could replace Bosa. I don't know. Just an idea. The other kind of sleeper name that I think is a name that, makes a lot of sense is Thomas Incoom from Carolina, who's an edge rusher who's very athletic, and he's just kind of mired in Carolina, buried on their depth chart, and they're just mismanaging him. I think in the wide 9, he could be a really, really good player. All right, let's do this. Let's make our sleeper lineup. And of course, we're loving sleeper these days because sleeper wins for us. We win on sleeper almost every week. This entire 49er football season on the Krug Show is presented by Sleeper, the fastest growing fantasy platform in the world. As we told you before, one-stop shop. It's an awesome thing. You get blazing fast news, real-time stats, group chat, season-long leagues. You get sleeper picks. It's awesome. So if you're new to it, use the promo code Larry. You're going to get a 100% deposit match up to $100 on your first deposit. The link's right there in the description. Terms and conditions do apply. All right. Let's make a sleeper lineup. And I think I hit some of them tonight, but I don't think I hit them all because I don't think Saquon Barkley had the anytime touchdown. All right. Okay, so that was a loser. There we go. Yeah. Jalen Hurts, Wan'Dale Robinson. Yeah. Anyway, let's look ahead to Niners Bucs. Who do you want to go for? We'll do like a 3-teamer, 4-teamer, 5-teamer, something like that. What do you have a conviction on anybody before we get rolling here?
I mean, I think Baker is probably going to throw for at least 260. He's their entire offense. Like he's dropping back 30, 40 times a game. He's slinging the rock, 20 yards downfield 4 times a game. Like he's going to take a deep shot, if not 5 times on Sunday, and he'll probably hit 1 or 2 of them. So,
241.5 is just a gimme. He's going to throw for close to 300, I would think. So there we go. That's more. We're going more on Baker. Like that. Let's look at Egbuka. Egbuka is just a beast. 70.5 yards. I think he goes over that.
He's averaging 89, basically 90 a game so far. Does what San Francisco did in holding Nakua, I believe, under 90, maybe give you some more, I guess, positive thoughts or maybe buy into San Francisco's defense being able to stop Egbuka on Sunday?
I think this guy's better than Puka. I mean, I like Puka. Puka's really hard to stop. Yeah, they're totally different. I mean, Puka's so unstoppable. Him, Stafford to Puka is just, it's a little bit more unstoppable, but this guy's better as far as this guy's faster, younger, and more explosive, and this guy's runs in the 4.4s. He's got good size, he's got good strength, he's got good route running, great ball skills. I mean, this is a more complete all around player. I like Egbuka over the 70.5. I really do. All right, let's go to another one. Let's go more than 70.5. What else do we want to go with here?
Might want to pound the Pinheiro over on field goals too. Feels like that's going to be around 3 again on Sunday.
Let's check Pinheiro. I also want to hit CMC because I think I like the CMC rushing, or I like the CMC receiving total. I think CMC on the receiving total could be money. The one area where the Bucs really struggle is defending running backs out of the backfield, and a guy like CMC, I think, would just he is probably the best receiving running back out of the backfield right now. So I think let's see what Eddie Pinheiro, and then we'll take a look at CMC. Eddie, two field goals. Yeah, I like that.
It feels like a gimme.
Right, more than 1.5.
He scored 14 points against the Rams on Thursday Night Football. He's probably going to get at least 6 points on Sunday against the Bucs.
Mac plays pretty efficient football, but then the Niners also have issues in the red zone. And I would say whether they're short field goals or long field goals, I think a couple Eddie Pinheiro field goals are pretty good. All right, let's take CMC. Let's see a CMC. What is his receiving yards? Is that 55.5? No, that's rush yards.
That's 50.5 receiving yards. Yeah.
Up top there.
Yeah.
There it is. I was looking down low. 50.5 receiving yards. I like over. I like more there. Yeah. Now, why? Because they're just struggling, and this is going to be, I think, how the Niners use CMC. I think they're going to throw him the ball. I like the matchup.
I do think it's concerning that this team has yet to find any leverage on the ground at all. Like, that to me is their biggest limiting factor. Obviously, there's pass rush problems at times too, but I just think while they are 4-1, they've won and they are top their own division. The fact they can't run the football is they're the worst in football at yards per carry. Like, if they don't fix that, it's going to be. It certainly gives a hard cap, to me at least, how far they can go this year. But the way CMC's played as a receiver has been otherworldly through 5 weeks.
We'll get to it after this, but because I'm not sure what to expect this week on the ground, to be completely honest. The Niners are struggling to run it. Vita Vea is a monster in the middle, but then Seattle just ran for 6 yards a carry. And when you watch that film, they got to the edges, and the Niners, I think, potentially could get to the edges as well. All right, so there it is. $5 to win $21.75. It's not very much. All we're getting is $21.75 out of that. We're going Baker more than 241 passing yards. McCaffrey more than 50.5 receiving yards. Egbuka more than 70.5 receiving yards, and Pinheiro with 2 field goals. If we go 4 for 4, we go for 21.75. All right. Well, there you go. I like it. I feel good about our chances of winning. Big thanks to Sleeper. Remember, use code Larry for 100% deposit match up to $100. Links right in the description. Terms apply. Terms and conditions apply. Help support the show and get you rolling on the #1 sports app, Sleeper. And thanks to Sleeper for being a proud sponsor of the Krug Show. And good luck to all you guys on Sleeper. And as I said, we've been killing it on the Sleeper. So hopefully you guys, hopefully we kill it and we got that right. And winner. All right, let's hit a couple supers, and then we'll get into a couple topics that I want to hit as well. We got this one from Joseph Ernberg. Nick Martin over Scadaboo is criminal. 42.7 Bucs. It's easy to say that because Nick Martin's been inactive, but Nick Martin is a really good linebacker. He's going to be a really good linebacker. And running backs, they took Nick Martin over him. They took Upton Stout over him. They took Collins over him. Scadaboo's a good player for sure. I don't know. I personally, I'm not sitting there pounding the table going, damn, they blew it. Nick Martin's fast and explosive, and I think has a bright future and I think he's a Pro Bowl linebacker. And what's more valuable, a Pro Bowl linebacker or Cam Scadaboo? And I kind of think a Pro Bowl linebacker. So I know Scadaboo right now, after the Monday night game, he just had a great day, 3 touchdowns. Nick Martin hasn't been active. It's an easy drive-by on Nick Martin, but I don't think that's going to age well.
Yeah, let's be patient. Obviously, Scadaboo's having a great year, 3 touchdowns tonight against Philadelphia, looking like a monster in their backfield. He's made Tyrone Tracy look irrelevant, which he had a great year last year for the Giants. But you can imagine CMC and Scadaboo in the same backfield, but it's also behind San Francisco's pretty piss poor offensive line, so it probably wouldn't change much. But one could dream.
Joseph Ernberg says, what are the chances Adrian Martinez starts and plays? I don't think there's much chance that he starts. It was weird seeing him as the only quarterback throwing passes today in the portion of practice that I saw. I will say this about Adrian Martinez. That's not my concern. I mean, I'm not like, oh my God, if they, they're screwed, Adrian Martinez is a winner. He's a winner. He's won. He won at Nebraska. He won at K-State. He won. He won in the UFL. He's a good player. He's an athletic player. He's got 4.5 speed. Now he doesn't have awesome throwing ability. I think he tops out more as an NFL backup, but he's resourceful. He's athletic. He's smart. He's competitive. He's playing his best football. I don't think he's going to go out there and embarrass himself. This is not a Josh Johnson NFC Championship game situation where they're going to be like, oh my God, what the heck is going on here? They can't even get a ball snapped on time. Adrian Martinez is a much better prospect than that. He's also didn't just show up on Monday or anything. He's been here now for a while. He knows a little bit more of the offense. He's athletic. He's competitive. He's athletic. He can move. He can make plays. I'm not saying he's a star, but I'm also saying if he comes in the game, I'm not giving up hope. Oh my God, it's over. Adrian Martinez is in. He's not that kind of a prospect. He's a better prospect than that. He's a better thrower than you think. He's a better athlete than you think. He's just a better quarterback than you think. I think people, there's a reason that they have Adrian Martinez in there. And it's not because, they don't want to win. You know what I mean? I mean, they like this guy more than Carter Bradley, whose dad is on the coaching staff. They like this guy more than Tanner Mordecai. And I liked him at Nebraska. I mean, he's a very athletic quarterback who's just recently played the best ball he's ever played. So we'll see. I do think there's a very good chance we're going to see him at some point.
Jones will start. However, he's banged up. The oblique, the PCL. Who knows how many bananas he eats on the sideline on Sunday against Tampa Bay in the heat out there in Florida. Not a high chance he starts, but there's probably about a 30-ish% chance he may play because Jones takes a hit almost every single snap, it feels like. But I'm kind of in the other camp where if I see Adrian Martinez out there, albeit I'm not saying, oh God, the game's over. It's like, oh, well, the odds diminish a ton where I feel more confident with Mac Jones playing probably his best football ever right now through 5 games. If he gets hurt, I'm sitting there, head in the hands, like, oh my God, season's over. Like, what's going on? This is terrible.
Well,
but,
I mean, I hear you because
maybe you're
Martinez
right.
hasn't been there very long, but I'm telling you, he's I I think he's going to pleasantly surprise people. I'll just say that.
I hope so.
We'll see. I've been wrong before. Mr. 53 Degrees says, very interesting how many similarities between these two teams. Records, injuries, just scraping wins out. Should be a hell of a game. It's even more than that. I mean, think about it. Both these teams have bad special teams units, but both teams have kickers that they really like. It's like Tampa really likes their kicker. The Niners really like their kicker, but the Niners special teams is lowly rated. Tampa's special teams are lowly rated. I would say the Niners' better chance of moving the ball with their running back is probably to throw it to CMC. If you ask me, Rachaad White's best chance of having success against the Niners is probably catching passes. So I think they're very similar in that regard as well. Niners have not, the Tampa's got a banged up offensive line. Niners just have a struggling offensive line. I think that's going to be interesting too. We'll get into it, but who runs the ball? That's always seems like a big determining factor. Let's hit a couple more supers. Max says, when will they suit up Sebastian Valdez? I think it's Valdez or Evan Anderson are probably going to get the elevation on Saturday, one of the two elevations. Who would you elevate between those two guys? Kalia Davis is going to try to play with a club on his hand, which is going to be very challenging, I would imagine. Kevin Givens also had his 3-week practice window opened, and if he's ready to roll, he might get the designation over Valdez, over, who's the other? Oh, Evan Anderson. Yeah. So what do you think? I mean, I would like to see Valdez because Valdez is a little bit more of a pass rusher than those guys.
Yeah, I think San Francisco would prefer Givens being back. Obviously, he's more proven a smaller defensive tackle. Hopefully, get inside a larger offensive lineman's chest and make some nice plays. But if he can't go, I think they'll elevate Evan Anderson. He started for them last year, does give them kind of some space-eating ability. But I think you're right. I think every Niner fan wants to see Sebastian Valdez play. He was great in the preseason, got lucky, kind of squeaked by waivers, and no one claimed him off the practice squad so far. So I think if you ask me what I wanted to see, it'd be Sebastian Valdez. But I think that they will rather play Givens or Anderson on Sunday.
Yeah, I know. I think you're right. I think Givens will probably, if Givens is right, I think Givens is going to get the call. Stefan says, get Sebastian Joseph Day. Would that
Round
be a
two?
third stint? Or is it
I don't know.
He's in Tennessee.
Playing better, mind you. Playing better.
He knows the scheme, but that, of course, now we don't know if Saleh likes him, but the Niners have liked him in the past. And they've gone back to a number of different guys, but those were offensive guys that Kyle kind of liked. All right, let's talk a little bit about Brock Purdy, Mac Jones. Steve Young weighed in on this week, and he's like, there's awkwardness, and it's just awkward. No matter how good the vibes are, no matter how good the relationships are, no matter how much trust there is or who says what, there's always awkwardness there. Jones is playing well. Purdy's got the toe. The Niners opted not to put Purdy on the IR. I think that's probably a bad decision. And it's probably just an indication that he wants to get back sooner. And we know he wants to get back sooner, but is it in his best interest to play one game and then, it had a recurrence? Well, no, that's hardly surprising. So now you have a couple weeks of Jones, and then you bring Purdy back, in a week? You don't put him on IR because you don't want to sit him out for 4 weeks. It's already been 1. So you're telling me that he's not going to be out for the next 3 weeks? I think he probably is. But, so it's like Brock wants to get back in there, and he wants to lead the team, but he's got a toe that's failing him. And it just doesn't seem like it's in his best interest. I mean, I'm not a doctor. I don't know anything about turf toe. But is it in your best interest to make that thing painful and then let it quiet down and then get it more inflamed and then let it quiet down and then get it more inflamed? It seems like eventually you're going to have scar tissue, you're going to have pain, you're going to have tendonitis, you're going to have recurring issues. Isn't that potentially making it a chronic situation? You're taking a toe injury that could be not that big of a deal. Now you're going to make it worse by never letting it heal, keep recurring, having a recurrence of it. I don't know. But then there's the awkwardness of, who's going to lead the team and who's going to play. And, the very competitive situation, I'm sure. The Niners do have Mac under contract for next year. So they can come back next year with Mac Jones at a very reasonable price tag and have this unbelievable backup quarterback situation unless he demands a trade. So how would you handle this? Because, I just described all the factors. Mac is obviously not 100%. He didn't practice really today, from what I can tell. So he's been beat up behind this line. So I don't know how much longer he's going to last. And then Purdy, do you want to keep rushing him back? It doesn't seem like it's going to be, you're almost like begging for his toe thing to become a long-term situation if you keep letting him sort of get healthy and then put him back out there. So how do you play your hand of cards? They're 4-1, but it's not a perfect 4-1 team. There's some flaws. What do you think? How do you play your hand at quarterback? Do you go with Mac Jones for the next month and tell Purdy he's on IR and dictate to him, or do you let him beg back in next week? If he doesn't play this week, it's on grass. If he doesn't play next week, then also you got some games on turf. You got Houston on the turf, and so was he going to come back from the turf toe and first game on the turf? And this Houston defense is really kind of a sleeper, underrated defense. So how do you play your quarterback hand of cards if you're Kyle Shanahan? It could be the difference between going to Super Bowl 60 and not making the playoffs, how they handle this.
Yeah, so I'm not under the interpretation that even if Mac goes on a great run and Purdy's out, then Purdy comes back, that it's not going to be Brock Purdy's job. So in that case, I would put Brock Purdy on IR for 4 weeks, kind of save him from himself. Take the pressure off of trying to rush back, to need to get back out there and say, hey, look, dude, just table it, get you healthy. We know with you out there, we're a better football team. Mac's playing good football for us right now. And we can win games like this with the way Mac Jones is playing. I think that San Francisco should be smart here because you get in really dangerous territory if, let's say, Purdy doesn't play against the Bucs and then he comes back the next week. Then he gets hurt again, or the toe's a problem, like you were saying, a second flare-up, and it's, oh my God, here we go. You then reach territory of maybe he needs surgery. Maybe he's out for the whole year. Maybe he is Joe Burrow and he's out for 3 months because he can't play. Do you want to risk that? I think that is the concern for me, where if you're the Niners and you feel like, okay, like Mac's playing good enough, like we're winning games with Mac Jones. We can survive a month without Mac Jones. And I believe they can beat the Falcons with Mac Jones. I think they can beat the Texans, who aren't playing good football without Mac Jones. Like, they can go into week 10, 6-4. They can go into week 10, 7-3. I think they can do that with Mac Jones. Now, I think targeting week 10 as a return for Brock Purdy wouldn't be a bad thing. You maybe get Ayuk back by then. Who knows? You hopefully have Kittle back at full strength by then. Pearsall's back if guys can stay healthy. And then Brock Purdy returns at home against the Rams. Table the conversation. Go get healthy. Don't rush himself back, because the worst thing that can happen for this, if you rush Purdy back, he gets hurt again. He needs surgery. Now you're opened up. Now it's a surgery offseason to recover once again, the second time for Brock as San Francisco's head coach. The elbow, now the toe. And we've learned throughout the entire history of San Francisco, you get a turf toe injury, guys never come back sometimes. Willis retired because of turf toe. Hey, sometimes you don't heal right. And that's a concern in Cincinnati. And that, I think, is a concern with San Francisco too, of like, you know what? Why risk our franchise quarterback, who it is pay big money, to come back and play the Falcons and the Texans, when I'd rather have him from week 10 to week 18 in a playoff run than the next month or so. So I'd put him on IR, let him rest, almost take the decision out of his hands to play. San Francisco told the media, we're going to save CMC from himself. Do the exact same thing for Brock Purdy to help your team win, hopefully, as the year progresses.
I just think Brock wants to play so bad that he's going to play hurt, and it's going to get worse. And it's like, he's not he's on the practice field this week. I mean, he's on the side running up and down. And he's not staying off that toe. He's on the field. He's doing work. He's trying to get back. So it's really a tough one. It's really a tough one because it's like on one hand you want him to lead the team, you want him to get healthy, you want him to try to get back, but if it needs surgery, I mean, should he just have surgery? It's a very difficult decision, and I'm sure he wants to be in there, but it's really beyond how Mac's playing. You've got this long-term sizable investment in Brock Purdy. Get him right physically before you put him back out there, because if it is a long-term thing, then you're making a bad decision. Considering the sizable investment you have in the player. The 49ers offensive line is part of the reason that these guys keep going down. The Niners have been forced to throw the ball a ton because they can't run it. The Niners offensive line is 32nd in the NFL in pass block win rate. They're 31st in a couple other areas. They're not getting it done in the run game, but they're also really not getting it done. Pass block win rate, they're not good at pass blocking either. What do you think? Do you make a change? Is there a lineup change to make? I don't. This almost seems like they've got the 5 guys that they think are their best 5 guys. Colby's in for Barch because Barch is hurt. They said Brendel's their best option at center. Pooney was a highly rated guard last year. He's clearly regressed. McKivitz and Williams are easily their best tackles. They don't have another tackle on their roster anywhere that would approach even a reasonable facsimile of those guys. They're like praying those guys don't go down. So you got the tackles you want in there. You got the center you want in there. You got the guards you want in there, but you're not getting it done. You're not running the ball, and you're lowly rated as a pass protection unit. What do you do? What can the Niners do to their offensive line? Is there a lineup change that can make them better on their O-line?
No. And this is the hole they dug for themselves. Because they didn't draft an offensive lineman until round 7 with Connor Colby, and I think it's reasonable to say a 7th-round rookie is struggling in his first couple starts of his career. That's going to happen. But this is their own fault. They did this to themselves. When you lose Ben Barch and you lose Spencer Burford, 2 guys who I think would probably be playing left guard right now if it wasn't for their injuries over Connor Colby, which I don't know how close those guys are to returning. But that to me feels like the only potential, quote unquote fix or roster starting lineup change they can make, but those guys are hurt. So we'll wait and see. But until then, there's not much they can do. You can't utilize quarterback bootlegs. Mac Jones can't run, and Purdy's hurt. And when he is healthy, that toe may still be a problem. So they're kind of stuck of trying to utilize this quick passing game, which worked against the Rams. I don't know if Todd Bowles will play, soft off-zone coverage for 4 quarters or an overtime session, but we'll see. But I think they're kind of stuck. I don't know. Like, the Niners' offensive line isn't good. We knew it wasn't going to be good coming into the year. The interior offensive line has been not good for 2 years now. Brendel hasn't had a great year again. Your left guard situation's not been upgraded whatsoever. You lose Aaron Banks, but okay, it's Ben Barch. He's never been healthy ever. And Pooney's having a sophomore slump. It happens. So I think in some way they're in trouble, but they're surviving. And I think if you can survive until Barch and Burford get back, at least there is some hope. But I don't see a trade coming. I don't see a move being made. I think this is who they're going to be. And they're kind of stuck, and they have to embrace that, unfortunately.
I watched Drew Moss today, and I thought to myself, he does move better than some of their other interior players. I wouldn't mind seeing Drew Moss, but yeah, I mean, rookies are going to make mistakes. They're not going to be necessarily highly rated. I think Connor Colby is going to be a pretty good offensive lineman. I think Tom Pooney's a pretty good offensive lineman, but right now they're not grading out very highly. The other thing is that Trent Williams has carried this unit in the past, and I think we've seen some natural regression from Trent, which was inevitable. as he's winding down his Hall of Fame career. So he's not quite as dominant. I mean, so much of what the Niners do is let Trent go one-on-one and slide everything the other way. And now Trent's having problems with some of the quicker players. We saw in the Rams game a couple times, Ram defenders, gave him an outside move and then jumped inside and got knifed inside and got to the quarterback, because he didn't get a hand on him. So that quickness, which is always going to bother somebody his size, is bothering him more as time goes on. So, I think overall, it's just their invest in a tackle thing is beyond overdue, and it's time for them to make that investment. And I know they will this next year, but it doesn't help them right now. Fred Warner has 946 career tackles, and Patrick Willis has 950. So Fred's 5 away from passing Willis for the most tackles in 49er history. Better player in your mind? Willis is obviously in the Hall of Fame. I think it's everybody's belief that Fred someday will be. Fred's considered to be the best coverage player of his era. Willis was a cutting edge player, with power, speed, instincts. He was a top 10 pick for a reason, and he played like it until a toe injury ended his NFL career prematurely. How would you compare Warner and Willis? And for the sake of a better question, who's better?
Man, that's like asking me to choose my first love over my new love, because I can tell you exactly where I was the day Willis got drafted. I think I was 12 years old playing Little League Baseball. And my brother walks up to me from the stands and says, "Hey, San Francisco picked a linebacker out of Ole Miss." I was like, "I don't know who that is. I'm 12 years old, whatever." So like watching his entire career was a blessing to watch him play every single Sunday. He was awesome. Always making big plays, just a monster over the middle. He kind of carried the torch from Ray Lewis into the next generation of linebackers in the 2010s. And Fred Warner's kind of walked in, and albeit very different players, Willis, a bigger, bulkier guy that can run around and knock over dudes and whatever, and just kind of like the tackle against the Jets where he just rocks the guy, and you're like, that's the top 10 tackle of all time. Oh my God. Whereas Fred, probably, if not the best, one of the best coverage linebackers of all time. He just erases the entire middle of the football field. And in this day and age of the, Shanahan offense kind of taking over the NFL, having a player like Fred almost negates other teams adapting to Shanahan's offense and getting the coordinators in to run the same scheme. I don't know if it's my recency bias. I think I might pick Fred. I just think Fred's is so good. Like, I think Fred and Willis probably could too translate today's NFL, but they're almost like two guys that were placed at the perfect spot in their careers at the exact right time to do what their near perfect skill sets give them. But I think I'd pick Fred, albeit Willis is, again, a Hall of Famer for every right reason.
Yeah. I mean, there's no wrong answer here, but I'll go Willis just from the standpoint of there were guys that, like Derek Brooks, who were like 225, 230, who moved incredibly well, like the fastest linebackers that you see today. And then in that same era, you had the 260-pound linebacker with the big neck roll, who was also kind of a thumper and took on guards.
Zach Thomas. Yeah.
Yeah. And the guys that took on guards all the time. And like Willis was, I think, kind of the first of his. I mean, Ray Lewis, a hell of a player, but Ray Lewis was an inside linebacker or outside linebacker at Miami, who was about 225 to 230 pounds, got up to about 240, or so with the Ravens. But Willis was the guy who could run like the wind, but he was like a legit rocked up 250 natural.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So, like, there's other guys who could run like that, but they were 225, 230. He was like that, but he was 250. And that's why Bowman and Willis were such a great combo, because they were both incredible movers, and they both were 250. I mean, Willis is 255, and Bowman was probably 250, but Bowman's like 6 feet, 250. Willis was like 6'3", 6'2 and a half, 6'3", 255. I mean, just an awesome speed. Awesome. Just whipped the tight end. Great against the run. Great at the point of attack. Can't run wide on him because he's too fast. Just a blue chipper. The Niners were coached in the Senior Bowl the year that Patrick Willis came out, and Mike Singletary had a chance to coach the linebackers and be around them all week. And he realized that this guy was a super blue chip player. He did everything right. He wasn't just the best player. He's also the best guy. You know, wasn't just the best athlete. He's also the hardest worker. You know, it's like he checked all the boxes. You know, that's what happens when you get like top picks in the top 10. You get the cleanest prospects. When I say cleanest, I mean they have no injuries. They have no you know, they're good against the run. They're good against the pass. They're good, high character. That they're really clean prospects across the board. There's no like, oh yeah, he's a great guy, but he's also a criminal. No, that guy doesn't wind up in the top 10. That guy falls to the 4th round.
Yeah, that's Reuben Foster,
right? Or the guy that Aaron Hernandez. Aaron Hernandez was a great player at Florida.
Yeah.
And people were like, why is he going in the 4th round? And it's like, well, because NFL security did reports on him and they knew he was kind of a bad guy with character concerns. Otherwise, he's probably a 1st-round pick, probably a 2nd-round pick.
Yeah.
Great player. So, there's risk reward. But Patrick Willis, great guy, great athlete, almost kind of like I was watching a thing the other day on Willie Mays. Willie Mays was a 5-tool guy. In a lot of ways, Willis is a linebacker without weakness. I mean, there's no real weakness there. He could cover, he could blitz, he could take on linemen, he could break down in space against really, really athletic receivers and running backs and tight ends. Just a very versatile player. Dominated the tight end, whipped the tight end pretty consistently, could cover the tight end. Really special player. No, so you can't go wrong. But I'll go Willis. You're going Warner. Let's talk Niner receivers this week. Who is going to step up? First of all, who's going to play? Is Pearsall going to play? Is JJ going to play? Ayuk's out. Pearsall's doubtful, and JJ's questionable. It sounds like.
Yeah, Pearsall's not going to play. No way.
And Ayuk's obviously still out. So those guys are out. But JJ is going to be like a game time decision, they think.
I think he'll play. I think he'll be back.
You got JJ, you got Sky Moore, you got MVS, you got Kendrick Bourne, and you got DeMarcus Robinson. Which receiver do you feel best about going into this game?
Well, that's a thing, because do you rely on the chemistry that Mac Jones has with Kendrick Bourne that has simply just been awesome to watch in the couple of games they played together, the Rams game being the biggest example of that? Am I wrong to also say that any wide receiver above 6 foot gets it done? Because I don't know if Jamel Dean will play for the Bucs. There are some concerns he may not for them. And if he doesn't, then the 2 cornerbacks the Buccaneers are guaranteed to have this Sunday is rookie slot cornerback Jacob Parrish out of Kansas State. Love him. Great player out of Kansas State. I wanted San Francisco to take him over Upton Stout. They didn't do that. But he's 5'10". And the other cornerback,
maybe not even.
Yeah, 5'9" maybe. Whereas the other cornerback is Kendall Vildor, who he's a smaller guy. He's not, he's not tiny, but he's a smaller dude having a terrible year, 144.7 passer rating allowed. And you look at what Mac Jones' strengths
former
are.
Chicago Bear, right?
I'm pretty sure he was the cornerback on Brandon Ayuk's butterfly catch in the NFC Championship game in 2023. So really, I would say Robinson, Bourne, Jennings, like all those guys, Jennings being 6'3", I think that's going to dominate Jacob Parrish in the slot if he plays this Sunday.
The one thing that really is hard to gauge sometimes, and it's hard to measure, but it's a vital thing, is that your quarterback has to have relationships with his receivers. So it's like that does matter. You see it all the time. It's not just the Niners. You see it across the league. You got one guy, he's a great receiver, he's on your fantasy team. All of a sudden they put in another quarterback and he doesn't get the ball.
Yep.
And he's still playing, he's still running, still playing the same number of snaps, he's still running the same routes. It's just, for whatever reason, he doesn't have the same chemistry. And there's no doubt that even though they downplayed it up front, that Kendrick Bourne and Mac Jones have a chemistry that goes back to New England. And there's you can kind of see he's looking for Kendrick Bourne. So I would say Bourne, is probably like, I don't know if he's going to have the 10 catch, 140-yard day, but I wouldn't be surprised if he caught 7 or 8 balls and 75 yards, something like that. I think Bourne is probably a good call. I think Demarcus Robinson's probably going to see more touches and more targets. As time. He had a really good summer. I would imagine he's going to see the ball a bit more. I think
now it's his third game back from suspension. Do you think he'd get more into the offense?
Who's that?
Robinson.
Oh, yeah. I think so. I was kind of surprised he didn't get the ball more last week, but it's like he doesn't quite have the same, maybe rapport with Jones. So maybe Jones doesn't look for him as much. I think Tonjes is he's got 16 targets, I think, in the last 2 games. So they're starting to look for him a little bit, but I'm hoping it's Bourne. I've picked up Bourne on my KMBR fantasy league team. I have Bourne and Demarcus Robinson, and I've got to play one of those 2 guys.
Ooh.
Who do you go with? Who do you go with?
I
think I'm going to go with Bourne. I got to go with Bourne because of the 140.
I think on the ESPN fantasy app, he was projected to get like 12.5 points for PPR. So, look, this Buccaneers defense is having a really hard time covering anybody. Like,
they really are.
It's just a bad secondary this year. And I think, and maybe this can help, and it might go into the Christian McCaffrey and Jake Tonjes stuff, but the Buccaneers linebackers, Levante David and Service Dennis, those guys can't cover anything. Like a Mack truck can get open in the center of their defense. That's how bad they've been this year. So far, again, I know PFF kind of has some negative connotations nowadays, but David, a 39.7 coverage grade. Dennis, a 28.2 coverage grade. That is the 7th worst and the literal worst coverage grades in football amongst linebackers, and both those guys play in the middle of the exact same defense. Dennis has given up 21 receptions for 133.2 passer rating, 331 yards and 251 yards of yak and 1 touchdown. Meanwhile, Levante David, 3 touchdowns allowed, 164 yards on 18 receptions. Mac Jones should have the entire middle of the field open to him this Sunday, which may lead you to Kendrick Bourne. Robinson kind of feels like the boundary guy on the offense currently. So you may want to pound the Bourne over if you possibly can on any app you're using. Maybe it's Sleeper, who knows?
Well, I'm going against Murph in the KMBR Fantasy League, and I need Kendrick Bourne because he has Scattaboo. Scattaboo just dropped 30 on me. All right, the Eagles lose tonight to the New York Giants, unbelievably. Thursday Night Football goes to the G-Men. Eagles couldn't do anything. First of all, it's funny. Turnovers are so important in football. It's like whoever wins the turnover battle is going to have a great chance to win, period. Philly was -2 in turnovers. New York outrushed them by 99 yards. Philly went 1 for 9 on 3rd down. New York went 13 for 6 or 11 for 16. A lot of those were runs to Scattaboo. Scattaboo, 19 for 98, 3 touchdowns. He also caught a couple balls. Philly averaged 3.7 yards per carry. They've now lost 2 in a row. Jalen Carter didn't play. He was out with a heel. And then Quinyon Mitchell went out with a hammy in the second quarter. So that had a lot to do with it as well. Knowing what we know right now, let's live in the present, who is the team to beat in the NFC?
Would I be wrong to say the Detroit Lions?
I think it's beauty in the eye of the beholder. I think you could make an argument for these Buccaneers based on how well they've played with all the injuries they've had.
Bad. Their defense is too bad to me. Like the Lions at least have some fight in their defense, albeit they haven't had that real signature win just yet. Even Green Bay's good.
These are the contenders. It's Philly, Washington, Detroit, Green Bay, Tampa Bay, Niners, Rams.
I think the NFC goes through the NFC North this year. I think I would go Detroit and Green Bay are my top two, and the Rams are probably my number three.
Okay. I would have said Philly, a couple weeks ago, but they're starting to come apart. Washington looked really good last week against the Chargers.
They did, yes.
And that was an impressive win. Green Bay has looked good at times, but there's something wrong there. I guess I would probably lean with Detroit too.
They're going to lose to Flacco twice this year, Green Bay?
Maybe.
It might happen.
It might. I could see that. But, once again, it's like I get if the Niners brass is like, we don't want to trade too much. I get that. But you know what? You don't have to have an all-time team to go to the Super Bowl. It's like
Sure.
Things can break right for you. I know there's a lot of people that, especially younger Niner fans, most of the younger Niner fans never saw the Niners win the Super Bowl. Every year the Niners won the Super Bowl, they didn't go 15-1. Right? They were awesome in 84. They were awesome in 89. But in 88, they went 10-6. They lost like 9-6 to the Raiders, like in the middle of the season. They lost a game to the Arizona Cardinals, that they blew a big lead. And they went 10-6, but they got hot at the end of the year and they were unstoppable in the 88 playoffs against Minnesota and against the Bears, and then of course against the Bengals in the Super Bowl. So I mean they really, really got it going. So I'm just saying, I know the Niners may think, well, we might be better in a year, and that might be the case. But you got two quarterbacks that can process. You got 4 or 5 of the best players in football, even though they're a little long in the tooth. You got some real talent on defense. You got some excellent defensive coaches on your staff. I think you got really good talent on all 3 levels of your defense, albeit some young players. And I'm not seeing that team. Like Philly, Washington, Detroit, Green Bay, Tampa Bay, Rams. I think the Niners can go on the road and beat every single one of those teams in the playoffs if need be. I don't think any of those teams will make me go, oh, my God. And I'll tell you the thing about Detroit. Detroit's a great team. You're totally right. But Detroit is a 1-quarterback team. And Jared Goff's playing great. But Frank Ragnow's out, retired. Their offensive line right in front of him is not as great. And if he goes down, it's Kyle Allen. So, and he is not all that mobile, and his offensive line's not as good as it used to be. So I just think that, Detroit looks great, but Detroit's real weakness is they don't have anything behind Goff. And if Goff gets hurt and he's not that mobile, if he does go down, they're cooked. So I think it's wide open, man. I think if I were the 49ers, I would absolutely try to be aggressive at the trade deadline and see if I can coach up my young defense as much as I can. See if Boyer can improve the special teams unit as you go. See if you can, somehow get some of your receivers back and add a little bit to the mix. I think they can. It's an imperfect world in the NFC. I mean, Philly looks like they've come back to the pack. Washington has got their own weaknesses. As I said, Detroit has 1 quarterback. Their backup is no good at all. I just think that there's, it's going to be what team has the worst series of injuries. But I think the Niners are I don't see a team in the NFC that I'm like, no way. They're Niners.
You're right.
They're not beating them. That team doesn't exist.
Nobody in the NFC has yet to truly pull away yet. I think I would probably be scared most of probably the Lions, simply because they're more proven than Green Bay is, and they've won more in recent seasons and everything. But I will say this, kind of putting 2 pins in this, that to me is why you talked about getting hot late in the year, hitting your stride when it matters most. That's why you want to preserve Brock Purdy, knowing that he gives you the best chance to win. At least you think he does. And then on top of that, I do wonder if, say, teams like the Rams, older quarterback, Matthew Stafford, they want to maximize this year. The Lions, this is their window. They're in the thick of it. Who knows how long that lasts? They want to maximize this year as well. I do think you are going to see more teams more aggressive and willing to make that big move, more so than San Francisco will. So you talk about Trey Hendrickson, you talk about more big names potentially on the kind of the draft market or trade market. I think San Francisco may simply be outbid by other teams in the NFC trying to maximize their windows, whereas San Francisco may sit back and say, hey, we like our team. We want to make a deal, but Detroit, the Rams, those teams feel much more comfortable trading away a day one pick or a high-end day two pick to make sure their window is wide open this year compared to San Francisco, who wants to play somewhat coy with 2025.
You know, what's also interesting is that you never know what players are going to be available in football. There are so little trades, but then you also get, there could be a super great player that we didn't expect to be available that could become available.
Yeah.
It's just kind of the nature of the way the NFL goes. A couple more supers, and then I've got two guys I want to ask you about before we get out of here. One is from Humdinger. Do not bring Brock back for the Texans game with Alshire hurting quarterbacks on purpose. Let's not fear Aziz. And Stefan says top 5 Niners by trade value. Oh, my gosh.
Fred's probably number 1.
Is he?
He's the best linebacker in football.
Yeah.
Still playing at a high level.
Bosa's, what people pay for defensive linemen, though, is pretty extreme. I would say Bosa 1, Trent 2, Fred 3.
Kittle 4?
Kittle
or
4.
McCaffrey 4.
Probably Kittle 4. And then probably Brock.
Okay.
So, I was doing a stream the other day with Grant, and Grant's like, trade Brock. I'm like, oh my gosh,
dude.
If we get there, I mean, if we're at that spot, it's like, oh my gosh. But believe me, if he's saying it, other people will be saying it shortly. And I haven't gotten it in the chat yet, but there are people.
It'll be there soon.
It'll be there soon.
If Mac Jones beats the Buccaneers on Sunday, it'll happen.
That's all it's going to take.
I mean, some fans
Mac
already
Jones
feel
gets
that
a win
way,
on Sunday, and suddenly people are going to be like, trade Brock.
But beating Matthew Stafford and beating Baker Mayfield back to back on the road, I think that'll stir up some of the fans a little bit.
What would get you to say, yeah, I agree, trade Brock
this season?
Yeah, or just period. I mean, you just said that people might. You're saying people might ask for it Sunday. So
yeah.
But that's not necessarily you,
right?
What would it take for you to say, you know what? I'd go with Mac Jones and trade Brock Purdy. What would it take? When are you going to be there? When would you be there?
It wouldn't happen this year. I don't think it would happen this year.
The guy wins the Super Bowl at Levi's.
Right.
He won Super Bowl 60 at Levi's, and you're saying, no, they're going back to Brock.
That's probably the breaking point where if Mac Jones goes on this miraculous run, wins a Super Bowl at Levi's Stadium as the backup quarterback, and is under contract next year, I think that is clearly when the year, or that's when that conversation gets real, because then you walk into a Nick Foles, Carson Wentz situation. However, when you're paying a quarterback starting next year, really, money complicates the matter in a major way. So it would take Mac Jones having a miracle season, kind of like how Brock had in 2023, top 5 MVP and winning a Super Bowl, to make me say, okay, he's the guy over Brock Purdy, which Mac Jones, first round pick for a reason. Like, let's not act like Mac was, a bad player. Like, he has the archetype to work really well in the system, but it would take a lot to get there.
To me, that would be it. It would be whoever wins the Super Bowl is going to be the guy. And I know that sounds really bizarre, but I really think that's the truth. If Brock had won a Super Bowl, he'd be the guy. And right now he is the guy because he got really close to it. and he took them from behind on the NFC Championship game and made a miraculous comeback. We forget that. They were down, 24 or some ridiculous amount of points?
It was enough to make myself and Matt Nahigian on Twitter Spaces yelling and everything. But I will say this.
Were you guys yelling at halftime on Twitter Spaces?
We were screaming with the fans, like, what the hell is going on? Oh, my God. Like, what a piss.
I was sick to my stomach, dude. I was sitting there going, I don't want to eat these dry chicken fingers. I can't. I'm sitting there. I seriously wanted to beat the crap out of the people around me because there were people around me, who were like, I don't need you to be rah-rah, but I cannot watch a football game with people that are like, every time something bad happens, it's over.
Oh, God, yeah.
It's over. I mean, there was a couple people in my neck of the woods over by that part of the press box who were just like, every time it was like, this game's over. I'm like, dude,
it's the first quarter.
If you say that one more time, I'm going to come back there and just tune you up, and it's going to be ugly. I can't listen to that. I can't. No, I don't want to hear cheering in the press box, but I don't want to hear anti-cheering. I don't want to hear glee at the team losing. That's the other thing. There's lots of people that will be like, don't cheer in the press box. It's unprofessional. But then they will show all kinds of glee when the Niners lose. And to me, that's even more unprofessional.
Yeah. Just don't say anything at all. Oh, man.
Right.
And just go on from there. Like,
right.
That's all you got to say.
You can't get mad at people. Like Todd Husak has been in the press box for a very little amount of time, right? He's a former player. And when there was a big play the other day, he was like, oh! And all these people in the back row were like, hey. And it's like, shut up. You get a life, losers. It's like, so he's showing football game. He's showing some enthusiasm for the home team. And I get it. It's you don't want to be homers, but it's more nauseating when you have people that hate the Niners who are writing, for whatever paper, and they're sitting there going, they're doomed. Jed's an idiot. Shanahan's not the guy. Lynch is a fool. And you can hear that while so there's people who exist too. I don't like either of them.
I will say this though about Mac Jones. The Niners aren't trading him either. Both these guys are here for the next 2 years.
Mac Jones wins Super Bowl 60. I mean, what if Mac Jones has a nice little run, plays 4 or 5 games, looks really, really good. Brock comes back. Yeah. His toe's fine. He's doing better. And then all of a sudden, he gets through a playoff win. All of a sudden, the toe starts barking. And now, he can't play anymore. It's the NFC Championship game. But the Niners somehow still advance to the Super Bowl. And now they're playing the Super Bowl at home. And Mac Jones wins that game. But Brock won you playoff games. Then all of a sudden it's like, well, now what? Now what? I still think whoever wins that Super Bowl, I think is going to be the guy.
It's like, do you reward the guy that got you to the playoffs or the guy that finished off the job? Like it's kind of like
if you win the Super Bowl, you're the guy. It's like
if Adrian Martinez somehow wins the Super Bowl, he's the guy.
That would be awesome. That would be
That would be incredible. Yeah,
that would be incredible.
That would be the greatest story ever.
The most amazing story. All the road to Adrian Martinez. Could you imagine?
Then you can say, I was right, Larry, at the end of the day.
The first man in history to win a UFL title and an MVP and a Super Bowl title and a Super Bowl MVP in the same year.
Man.
Dude, Adrian Martinez would be on top of the football world.
Hey.
Dare to dream.
Sign me up.
Sign me up. Yeah, it's a great story. Weirder things have happened. A couple supers here. Stefan says top 5 Niners. Okay, we got that. I thought we had another one there. Did I get this other one? Oh, yeah, we got that one. Okay, so 2 last guys I want to ask you about before we get out of here. Malik Mustafa's been back at practice.
Yeah.
And he really looks great. And when I say that, what I mean by that is just that he's making very precise movements on the field. And he looks really, really light on his feet. He looks really fresh. He doesn't look like he's favoring the ACL that he had surgically repaired. He looks really, really good. He's one of my favorite Niners. I mean, he's just like, he is an old school throwback, destroy you kind of a safety. David Fulcher, Ronnie Lott, Joey Browner, Steve Atwater, Chuck Cecil. I mean, the 80s safeties were hitters, and this guy is a hitter, major hitter. But that all being said, I don't know if he's coming back. He had his 3-week window open this week. We don't know if he's coming back this week. Hopefully he is coming back. It's just a matter of is it this week, next week, week after. What's your prediction? Is Robert Saleh going to bring him back? And if he brings him back, does he sit Siegel, who's been kind of attacked recently by opposing quarterbacks, or does he sit Pinnock? Siegel and Mustafa is probably the long-term safety tandem. Does he kind of think macro long-term and say, hey, let's get our best guys out there and use Pinnock into the specialty DB, specialty package, blitz package? Or do you go with Pinnock, the veteran, and Mustafa and tell Siegel, hey, your day will come, but it's not today?
I think Mustafa will play on Sunday. I think he said he expects to play, so we'll see how true that is. I do think that Jason Pinnock will be the one to be benched for Mustafa.
You do.
Now, I think you may see Pinnock move into the Jair Brown kind of larger slot cover corner, or cover safety, third safety on the field during zone coverage at times on base downs for San Francisco. I think that's why they brought him in, to play closer towards the box, to be a better run defender, to kind of give you more of a playmaker inside the box alongside Fred and D. Winters. Whereas I feel like really the biggest loser of the safety room with Mustafa being back is Jair Brown. I think Jair Brown doesn't even play on Sunday outside of special teams. I think Pinnock goes to the third safety. I think that Mustafa and Siegel get the start and they go from there. And I think that's the group going forward. But I do have my reservations as to, one, how much Mustafa actually plays, and two, I wonder if they get beat over the top early, if that either makes Saleh change his mind.
I wonder if there's a defense that could be featured where you have Mustafa playing linebacker, because he gives you such a speed advantage, such a coverage advantage. If you put him at linebacker, because
he also their best cover safety too?
Yeah,
I think
probably.
he is. So he probably
the numbers say he is. He was a very good coverage player a year ago for sure. Something to watch, but man, Mustafa is fun to watch. Watch. All right, one last one. Mykel Williams. Mykel Williams is doubled at the fourth highest rate of any defensive lineman in the NFL. Only Parsons, TJ Watt, and who was the third guy? Were doubled more. Parsons, TJ Watt, and somebody else. And then Mykel Williams. So on one hand, that's almost like a clear statement that this guy's a freaking force. And he played hurt last week. He was right in the middle of the biggest tackle there on Kyron Williams. I thought it was so idiotic that the Rams ran at the teeth of the Niners' run defense. And you got Alfred Collins and Mykel Williams, who, really challenged as pass rushers, but they are physically dominant behemoths against the run. Yeah. And you decided you're going to run a 190-pound back at the teeth of those guys when you have Stafford to Puka anytime you want, any route you want. Come on. It's just, I would just have Stafford just dropping back and just keep having him drop back. Just keep backpedaling until you find where you want to release it to Puka. That's that's unstoppable. That is absolutely unstoppable. And to not run that and to run a play which Chase Lucas told me it was what they called crunch to the bunch. So that's what that was. They said that they'd run it before in the game, and so they recognized it in the coming out of the huddle, and they were like expecting, it was also a really hard play to stop. A play the Rams had a lot of success running it in the past, but this is about Mykel Williams. Mykel Williams doesn't have a lot of tackles, doesn't have a lot of sacks, doesn't have a lot of stats, but he does have some awesome film. And I just told you he's been doubled at the fourth highest rate of any defensive lineman in the sport. So he's kind of a really unique evaluation, isn't he? Because on one hand, tackles and sacks and hits, and that's it, right? But he's also an edge setter. When I asked Robert Saleh about him today, he's like, he's really doing a great job as an edge setting run defender. And I think that's kind of Robert Saleh's super positive way of saying that he's not getting it done as a pass rusher. You know what I mean? Because he's like highlighting what he's really getting done. But what do you think of Mikel? On one hand, not a lot of production. On the other hand, man, he looks like a force, and he looks like a monster in the future.
I think we've seen Mikel's somewhat production, quote unquote, dip since Nick Bosa's not been out there. Obviously, you have Bosa, he'll do his own thing. And you have Mikel that was brought in to literally kind of activate Bosa DPOY kind of category again for him. And obviously Bosa isn't healthy, so things change. But I think we all knew coming into the year, Mikel said it himself, they knew it, Saleh, Shanahan, that he was a work in progress in the passing game, right? He doesn't have the moves he has. He's lengthy. He has a lot of strength, but he doesn't really have the fortified pathways to get to the quarterback. It is really just a bull rush, and then we'll develop things as they go on. But I love Mikel. I think you've seen San Francisco's run defense really improve because of Mikel on the edge. I think that it's allowed this Niners defense to get opposing offenses into third and longs more and third and manageables more for their defense, got the football field more. On top of that, and win more games. They've already won 4 one-score games this year. They had not won 4 all last year. So I think a lot of that is because of players like Mikel and more guys in this draft class. But we knew, again, there was going to be a work in progress with him in the pass rush game. But I think you just see him pushing back guards on the interior. He does remind me a lot of Eric Armstead, where he's a guy through his first 4 years wasn't a box score guy. There wasn't production there. There really wasn't, to a point of they're thinking, do we bring this guy back? And then all of a sudden, year 4, year 5, he explodes for 10 sacks with Bosa and Buckner and DJ Jones and D Ford. And I think once you reach year 3 and 4 with Mikel, the expectation should be an 8+ sack guy for us. And I think he'll get there, but I think right now all you're asking is be a base down run defender, move inside, eat up guards, and hopefully at least get quarterbacks off their spots. And he's done that so far for at least myself.
I think he's really good inside, and I think he's a really valuable piece to the puzzle. But I think you also got to surround him with a couple of really fast guys. Yep. Bryce Huff is a perfect guy to play with Mikel.
Exactly.
Will McDonald would be a perfect guy to play with Mikel. Because if you have those super speedy, super athletic edges, and then you have that interior guy that is really a mismatch athletically as well inside, you could play some games up front and really rock quarterbacks, consistently. All right, it is time for our big conclusion, and it's brought to you by Habas Law. 1-800-INJURED. They will fight to make it right. Today's show is sponsored by Habas Law. Big fan of Habas Law. Omar Habas and his son Tarek have been standing up for people right here in Northern California. They're fierce, relentless attorneys. They don't back down until justice is done. The insurance companies will try to avoid paying. These guys make sure that they pay. It's as simple as that. And they've been battling and beating insurance companies for decades and winning consistently. And they're rooted right here in the Bay Area. They're great guys. So if you're in need of someone in your corner, call the law firm that insurance companies hope you never call, and that's Habas Law. They will fight to make it right. Visit them on the web at habaslaw.com, HABBAS law.com, 1-800-INJURED. They will fight to make it right. Thanks to Habas Law for being a proud sponsor of the Krug Show. All right, let's get to the prediction. We stream once a week, you and I. It's on Thursday nights. Last week, we went, I think, on Wednesday, right? Because we had the Thursday night game. But give me your final thought on what we're going to see on Sunday. I think a lot of Niner fans, got almost 2,000 people hanging out watching this thing, and they want to hear kind of what you expect to see in this game, and maybe something to look for, and maybe a prediction of some kind. Give me a final thought on Niners Bucs.
I think it's going to be a fun one. I think it'll be back and forth throughout the entire 4 quarters. I'm expecting another one-score game between San Francisco and the Buccaneers. I guess if I was to give the fans out there and the listeners kind of one final statistic to look for this Sunday, I've gone through how bad the Buccaneers linebackers are in coverage, how depleted the secondary is in coverage. However, a lot has been made of the Buccaneers blitzing through weeks 2 and 4. They were blitzing quarterbacks around 40-ish%. That dipped to 29% against Sam Darnold last Sunday in Seattle. He threw for 341 yards, and I think he had 3 to 4 touchdowns in that game. You go back to what Sam Darnold did against this Buccaneers defense over the middle of the football field, 13 for 15, 2 touchdowns, 119 yards. Expect a very similar outing from Mac Jones. That said, as much as my heart wants to pick San Francisco, my head thinks it's a young defense coming off an emotional win. They're a little banged up. It seems like they're getting somewhat healthier as the weeks go on, but I do wonder, you're on the road, you're in Florida, supposed to be hot, supposed to be humid. Do those guys get worn out? I do think this is the game San Francisco actually does not have that goal line stand. You mentioned earlier that both these teams love their kickers. I have San Francisco losing this game 26-24 via a Chase McLaughlin game-winning field goal. Heartbreak for San Francisco, but a tough game and a near win nonetheless.
I think the 49ers are going to keep it rolling here. I like the Niners to win this game. Why? They're the more rested team.
Yep, 10 days.
They've got more rest. I think they're going to come in really bouncing. I think Mac Jones is set up nicely here to be able to throw a number of passes to Christian McCaffrey. I think Tampa Bay's got a beat-up secondary. They're number 8 in the NFL as far as most fantasy points allowed to opposing quarterbacks. 3 quarterbacks in a row have scored over 20 fantasy points against this defense. I think Mac Jones is going to pass for 300 yards in this game.
Yes.
I like Mac Jones to have a big passing day. I think Jennings will do a little bit. I think D-Rob will do a little bit. I think CMC will do a little bit. I think Kendrick Bourne will do a little bit. Tampa Bay's defense has allowed 5 different wide receivers this year to score at least 13 fantasy points. So that's the Niners have a number of receivers that I think are going to come through. Also, Tampa's defense has allowed 4 touchdowns the past 2 games to opposing tight ends, 2 to Dallas Goedert, 2 to AJ Barner. I wouldn't be surprised if Tonjes is involved. I saw something today, though, that I think is a wrinkle that I will look for. I think the 49ers are going to play Kyle Juszczyk at tight end. He practiced with the tight ends for a good portion today. I think there's going to be a number of plays where they utilize him as a tight end. I think they're going to go to some 2 tight end sets. I think they're going to utilize Juszczyk, and I'll say Juszczyk and Tonjes make an impact in this game in 2 tight end sets. So I like the 49ers to I think believe it or not, this is the game where I think they're going to find the running game. I know that sounds crazy because the Tampa's so good against the run. But,
number 1 run defense per EPA in football this year.
I know, but if you watch last week's game against Seattle showed how you can run against this team. Teams have really struggled. You can't run inside against Tampa. Okay, you can't run in the A gaps because of Vita. You really can't run between the tackles that well because they're pretty stout. They got some really stout guys, but they don't have as much speed to the edges. And Seattle had success running to the edges. And I think the Niners get the run game going in this thing. I think they're +2 in turnovers, and I think they win the game. I think the 49ers are going to win the game. I think it's a little bit of a shootout. I'm going to say a warm weather shootout. I'll say 34-28 49ers, 3 field goals for or at least 3 field goals for Eddie Dinero Pinheiro. So I like the Niners. I think it'll be a big passing day for Jones. The outside rush, they have Hassan Reddick, and yet Reddick's not really having a good year. Their outside rush hasn't really gotten home. The Niners are getting rid of the ball quick. I like the fact that Jones is playing in rhythm. I think it's going to be a very difficult rhythm to interrupt. I think the Niners are going to struggle with Egbuka, and I think he'll get a couple big time catches. But I think they'll do just enough to win on the road because they're the fresher team. So I'm going to say 49ers. What I say? 34
28.
34-28. Yeah, 34-28 49ers.
It's going to be a good one. It's going to be another, at least in my opinion, a one-score game, what San Francisco has a propensity for this year. It also helps that the Buccaneers have the worst right tackle in football, former San Francisco 49er Charlie Heck out there. So there are ways to get to Baker and hopefully bring him down. My only wish or regret is that Nick Bosa's not playing because he loves playing Baker Mayfield. So that is a big stinker, if you will, in this game.
Oh, and he loves playing in his home state of Florida, or is that? Yeah, I guess it is his home state.
Yep.
That's going to do it for us. Tell people where they can find you, and if they're finding you for the first time, tell them what kind of content you put out and how often and where they can find it.
Yeah, you can find me on social media at 49ers_access is the X or Twitter. 49ers.access is the Instagram. You can also find me on your podcasting platforms and on YouTube simply at 49ers Access. We react and preview every single game, in-depth analysis, and even do some fun what ifs and what could be's as the year goes on. We stream once, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times a week, wherever San Francisco takes us. But just released my preview podcast for this game this morning. Hopefully you guys can check it out. And as always, Larry, love being on the show with you, and a big Pig in a Pickle fan, as always.
Great to hear. We love Pig in a Pickle. Thanks to Pig in a Pickle. Thanks to Sleeper. Thanks to Habas Law. Thanks to Claw Daddy Arcades, who's a great follow on Instagram at Claw_Daddy_Arcades. Thanks to Sharp Corners, Sports Cards, and Collectibles. Thanks to all of our sponsors. Thanks to all of you guys. And tomorrow, I'm back at it tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. We'll go live from Santa Clara tomorrow morning with Damon Bruce at 9, with Chase Sr. at 10:45. At 11:30, I will be stepping in on KMBR for Greg Papa with Greg Silver, and I'll be on there between 11:30 and 1 o'clock. Then the great John Dickinson will take over for me, and I'll go to the Kyle Shanahan press conference. We'll do a full recap of the day in Santa Clara, and then we'll come back for Niners Nightly tomorrow night at 6 o'clock, and the great Todd Husak is going to join us tomorrow night in the 6 o'clock hour. So busy Friday for all of you. Thanks for supporting the Krug Show. Shop our sponsors. It's a great way to help the show. Thanks to Sterling. Thanks to all of you. Have a great night, everybody. Peace.
Yeah, never met a man I've been scared of. Careful, you gon' get